Alright, continuing gas distribution pipeline integrity management enforcement guidance, Title 49 CFR Part 192 Subpart P. Distribution integrity management, Part 192, the revision date is December 7th, 2015, code 192, 1015 B1. Section title 192 105 192 1015. What must a master meter and small liquid petroleum gas operator do to implement the subpart? Existing code language. B. The elements written in integrity management program must address at a minimum the following elements. 1. The knowledge. The operator must demonstrate the knowledge of the pipeline, which to the extent should include the approximate location material of the pipeline. The operator must identify the additional information needed to provide with the plan for the gaining knowledge over time through the normal activities conducted on the pipeline, for example, design, construction, operation, maintenance, and activities. The origin of the code is 192.113.74.63906, December 4, 2009. Last amendment not foreseeable. Interpretation summaries not foreseeable. Advisory bulletin alert and notice summaries not foreseeable. Other material and sources addressed in the Distribution Integrity Management Program Final Rule Preamble, the Federal Register, Volume 74, Number 232, Friday, December 4, 2009. Rules and Regulations. Comment Topic 20. Knowledge of the pipeline environmental factors made. Page 63919. Distribution integrity management frequently asked questions. C4A1. The rule requires the operator to know in system most of the operator to excavate simply and gather information about the parts of the system where it may not know have this complete knowledge. 64A2. There are some characteristics about the operator system that may be not to knowledge during the development of the implementation management program. The PHMSA expectation for the filing of those void. C4A3. Qualified subject matter expert when the details required to collect the new gas pipelines going into the ground. C4A5. What compromises reasonable available information. 64A6. When operated plans to provide plans include to use the demonstrated and understanding of the gas distribution system. The Gas Pipeline Technology Committee guided with the material Appendix G 192.8 in Section 3 Knowledge. Good guidance information. 1. The master meter and the small liquid petroleum gas operators are treated differently in the Distribution Integrity Management Program rather than ruled in large operators. From 192.101, the Integrity Management Plan or the Integration Management Plan. Means of written explanation of the mechanism procedure for the operator will use to implement the integrity management program and to ensure the compliance with the subpart. For the most master meters and small liquid petroleum gas operators, integrity management program must include the appropriate set of the mechanism procedures developed and implemented at each of the program element. The applicability of the word mechanism for the operators is important for the synonym mechanism process. The operator may employ a written explanation of the process employed mechanism developed and implemented with required element that less specific than written procedure. The integrated management program for the pipeline should reflect the relatively simplicity of these types of pipelines. The distribution integrity management plan should be concise but still most sufficient for the operator personnel to understand and implemented with the program on a consistent basis. 2. The operator may use a written explanation of the process employed with the developed and implemented with the required element that is less specific for the written procedure. 3. An operator must knowledge of the gas distribution system included but not limited to the following: location, material, composition, pipeline size, piping size, joint method, construction method, date of the installation, soil conditions, where appropriate operating design, pressure, history, operating experience, performance data, and condition of the system, and any other characteristics noted by the operator. As an important understanding of the items in this information must be obtained from sources including system maps and construction records, work program, work management systems, geographical information, corrosions, the records of personnel having knowledge of the subject of the system subject matter experts. 4. The operator must have documented mechanism procedure adequately address gathering information, demonstrated knowledge of this pipeline, which is extent now should include the approximate location material of the pipeline. 5. The operator must identify the additional information needed to provide with the plan with gaining knowledge over time through the normal activities conducted on the pipeline, for example, design, construction, operation, and maintenance activities. The Distribution Integrity Management Program must list the names of the operated specific information sources for the non-generic terms of the operating management documents. Some historical data may be no longer applicable for the current condition of the pipeline system. The pipe was replaced. The data of the previous pipe may no longer be relevant. Such data must be relevant where the circumstances of the construction practice, coating, backfilling, materials, piping, materials, environmental conditions of the pipe prior to replacement exist elsewhere, or the relevant existing risk of the operator system. For example, if bare steel pipe has been replaced but some of the bare still exists with the system, the data concerned with the replaced pipe may be still relevant. 8. Operators who transport gas other than natural gas needed to state in their distribution integrity management program how the characteristics of the gas impact the threat and risk, including with the difference from natural gas. 9. For the data identified with the operator need for threat identification and risk evaluation, there must be a process to identify with the facilities for the records are missing or inaccurate, incomplete, verifying the operator has checked the data for accuracy and completeness. 10. The conditional additional data improving existing data is not only required to occur as a part of the normal pipeline activities over the time. There must be a method of people performing normal pipeline activities to know what additional data is needed. Examples of probable violation or inadequate procedures: the operation does not have a mechanism procedure that covers the task being performed. The operator fails to follow the written mechanism or procedures. 3. The operator did not demonstrate that they have looked at all available sources or resources, records, finding information with the past design, operation, maintenance, such as coating material. 4. Operator did not specifically list with the documented where used to assemble the knowledge of the system. Operator does not gather or use responsible available data on the entire pipeline that could be relevant to performing the threat assessment risk evaluation as needed for the group of facilities. 6. There is no mechanism procedure to identify the need for the missing, accurate, and incomplete data. The operator has not identified the missing, inaccurate, incomplete data. Operator did not collect the data specified in mechanism procedures. Italics is, depending on the circumstances, some of the examples listed in this section may be inadequate plans or procedures, not probable violations. Thus, enforcement tools to address these issues would be notice of amendment, notice of probable violation, or a warning letter. Section 3, the enforcement procedure provide guidance for selecting appropriate enforcement action. Examples of evidence. Copies of the applicable pages of the Distribution Integrity Management Program showing the operator has not clearly stated the documented but the use of developed knowledge of the system. The last of the documented use of developed knowledge of the system is inadequate in identifying design, operating, environmental characteristics of the pipeline system. 2. The copies of applicable pages of the Distribution Integrity Management Program shows the Distribution Integrity Management Program is not detailed enough for the inspector to make a reasonable determination as to the accuracy, thoroughness of the process. Examples of evidence: copy the applicable page of the operator distribution integrity management program showing the required regulation provision are not documented or that the records or other documentation is sufficient to prove compliance with the intended regulation or provisions. Copy the applicable page of the operator distribution integrity management program showing the required data collection and utilization of the data not in distribution integrity management program. Documented photograph evidence demonstrating the violations. Documented oral written statements for operator personnel. The other special notifications are blank. Continuing on, Distribution Integrity Management Part 192, December 7, 2015, 119, 115B2. Also, the section title 192, 115, what limits a master meter small liquid petroleum gas operator due to implement this subpart. Existing code, language, elements of written integrity management plan must be addressed in a minimum following elements. 2. The identifying threats operator must consider a minimum following categories consisting of potential corrosion, natural force, excavation damage, other outside force damage, material and welded failure, equipment failure, and incorrect operation. Origin of Code 192, 113, 74, 63, 906, Federal Registry, December 4, 2009, in last amendment and interpretation. Summaries not so far advisable or visible. Advisory Bulletin Alert Notice Advisory Bulletin 1304 issued on August 22nd, 2013. The Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration advises to alert all pipeline operators at the T.D. Wilson Incorporation Leak Repair Clamp, or LRC, recall issued by the TDW on June 17, 2013. The recall covers the TD Wilson Incorporated leak repair clamp for any pressure classes, any size of the leak repair clamp must develop a dangerous leak due to the defective seal heads. The liquid and natural petroleum gas should verify that if they have any TD Wilson Incorporated leak repair clamp subject to the recall by reviewing their records, equipment inspection of the leak repair clamp. Advisory Bulletin 1303, correction issued on October 13, 2013. The Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration issuing an advisory bulletin to remind owners and operators of liquid petroleum gas or utility liquid petroleum gas plants that although must file with the American National Standard Institute National Fire Protection Association standards at 58 and 59, they must also file the certain sections requirements of Part 192 Advisory Bulletin 1302, issued July 2nd, 12, 2013. The PHS issuing the Advisory Bulletin to all owners operated with gas hazard of liquid pipelines to communicate potential damage to the pipeline facilities caused by the severe flooding. Advisory includes the action the operator should consider the taking and ensure the integrity of the pipelines in the case of flooding. Our Advisory Bulletin 1304 is issued August 22nd, 2013. Pipeline Hazard Materials Safety Administration Advisory to alert all pipeline operators. T.D. Wilson Incorporated Leak Repair Company clamp or recall issued to the T.D. Wilson Incorporated on June 17, 2013. The recall covers the TDW's leak repair clamp of the pressure classes any sizes. The leak repair clamp developed a dangerous leak due to the defective seal. Hazardous liquid and natural gas pipelines operators should verify if they have any T.D. Wilson Incorporated leak repair clamp subject to the recall, reviewing the records equipment of the isolation of liquid repair clamps. Alright, Advisory Bulletin 1105 issued in August 26, 2011. Pipeline Hazardous Safety Administration advisory to remind owners and operators of gas and hazardous liquid petroleum pipelines potential for damage to pipeline facilities caused by the patches of hurricanes. In addition, mentions integration management obligations under 195-452. Advisory Bulletin Ed 1205 issued March 20th, 2012. Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration urged the owners and operators to conduct a comprehensive review of their gas and iron distribution pipeline system replacement of the programs to accelerate the pipeline repair, rehabilitation, replacement of the aging high-risk pipeline. In addition, with the Advisory Bulletin notes regulation requirements of the national gas distribution companies to develop the distribution integrity management program for the pipelines owned and operated and maintained. Other reference sources addressed in the Distribution Integrity Management Final Rule Preamble of the Federal Register 74-232, Friday, December 4, 2009. Rules and Regulations, Comment Topic 7 in the Integrated Management requires Master Medium and Liquid Petroleum Gas Operators, page 63912. Distribution Integrity Management, Frequently Asked Questions, C4B1. Most of the operator using the computer-based, it must an operator use the computer-based risk analysis module. C4B2 must each 8 threats that to be considered for every pipeline type. C4B3, the distribution integrity management program requires, including knowing the condition of the facility that are risks and the potential damage of the external sources cross bores of the gas lines and sewers that have been reported at 2 to 3 miles of high-risk areas, predominantly where trenches installation methods were used at the gas line installation, where sewer gas lines are approximately of each other, and does the potential of the cross-bore sewers resulting in the gas line section with the sewers need to be determined. C4B4 are pipeline overbuilds if a threat should the other concerned threat category contain pipeline overbuilding, building and built put over the pipeline. C4B5, we use the leak causes which could experience in the past identified threats. For example, washouts in our system have not caused leaks in the past. Washouts are not identified as a threat. Should washouts be classified as a potential threat due to possibility of coating damage? C4B6, since we have not experienced any issues with the pre-1973 dual A pipe in the past, we did not subdivide plastic pipe in our risk evaluation as potential threat, and so only because of the operator's experience should we have treated it with applicable threat. C4B7 must not consider historical leak data that either section of pipeline has been replaced. C4B8, we often replace sectional pipeline rather than repairing individual leak in inspection. In this case, we must record the number and grade of leaks. C4B9, we experience problems in ranking potential threats, and some of the low frequency events have not occurred in our system to the date, and when it occurs, the mixing of apples and oranges assigned with the frequency of the probability to threat that has not occurred with the ranking and allowing with the events the due frequency. How should we account for the low or no frequency threats evaluating rank risk? The Gas Pipeline Technology Committee, the Guide Material, Appendix G 192.8, Section 4, Identified Threats, Table 141, Sample Threat Identification Method. Guidance Information 1. Master meter and small liquid petroleum gas operators are treated differently when the Distribution Integrity Management Program rule, and then larger operators. For Section 119, 192, 1001 Integrity Management Plan means a written explanation of mechanisms and procedures, or the operator will implement it, the integrity management program, to ensure the compliance with the subpart. The master meter of the small liquid petroleum gas operators integrity management program must include the appropriate set of mechanisms or procedures developed and implemented in each program element. These applicable within the word mechanism of these operators important synonym of the mechanism process. The operator may employ the written explanation of the process employed mechanism developed, implemented, or required element of the less specific of the written procedure. The integrity management program for the pipeline should reflect the relatively simplicity of these types of pipelines. The distribution integrity management program could be concise but still most sufficient for the operator personal understanding and implementing the program on a consistent basis. 2. The operator may use a written explanation of the process employed to develop and implement a required element that is less specific for the written procedure. After characterizing the system, the operator must identify the threats relevant to the distribution and segments. The process must meet the need for the establishing realistic identified of threats and determination of whether the frequency or level of significance requires a response that goes beyond the normal operating procedures. 4. The operators must consider the failures without release of potential threats when appropriate. The operator must determine each of the facility grouping which, if and any of the 7 primary subcategory threats, could affect the current or future integrity of the facility grouping. 6. Even if the operator concludes a particular threat is not applicable to sections of the pipeline, on the basis of the drawing, such conclusion must be documented. The operators may not discount or eliminate any existing potential threats to the subsystem without adequate basis for doing so. The basis must consider pipeline failures, history of design, manufacturing, construction, operation, maintenance. The reason for the excluding of the pipe must be documented within the operator's integrity management program. If the data used in the threat identification categorized as insufficient with respect to each of the threat covered by the missing insufficient data, then assumed to be applied with the entire group being evaluated under the additional information incorporated into threat assessment. Unavailability in the information is not justification for exclusion of a threat where the data of the missing and insufficient conservative assumption should not be used in the risk assessment. Records must be maintained to identify the unsubstantiated data are used and that are impact the variable accuracy of the assessment, and the results would be considered. 8. It may also be appropriate to subdivide threats, for example, to consider automatic corrosion of the of ground and pipe, external corrosion of the buried pipeline separately. Another example would be subdividing or knowing the problem materials. 9. Excavation damage must include in threats considered with the distribution integrity management program, that even if the operator has good external damage experience and throughout the damage prevention program, it is not acceptable for the operator to say that this threat is dealt with outside the distribution integrity management program, therefore need not to be included. 10. Potential threats include the threats where the operator has experienced a leak, the release of the gas, where they have conditions conducive to the threats, and corrosion, hurricane, flooding, excavation damage materials when the known integrity issues. Examples include trenchless technology used in the area, unknowingly bored through sewer and water lines. B. Future utility road improvement projects. C. The discovery of the material not previously known to be in the system. And D. The customer built structure over the existing pipelines. E. The overpressurization events. And 5. The instant the pipeline got damaged, including damage of the tracer wire, what did not result in release. G. Pipe materials insusceptible to brittle failure modes. 11. Possible sources include the operation of maintenance procedure, purchase orders, material listing from the old field orders and standards, information from the industry sources, plastic pipe data committee, or the pipeline hazard safety administration advisory bulletins. Information must include, for example, past continuing surveillance records of 192.6.13. Example, probable violation, adequate procedures. The operator does not have a mechanism or procedure to cover the task of being operated. The operator fails to follow the written mechanism, the procedure. The mechanism, the procedure do not include the review of 7 primary threats. All of the 7 primary threats required by the law or the rule were not adequately considered or evaluated. Multiple threats from the different 7 primary threat categories were not adequately evaluated. 6 specific threats eliminated from consideration without adequate justification. Operator does not use relevant operating maintenance records in evaluating each of the threat. 9. Each 8. Eliminating the threat is not sufficient or justified or documented. 9. Mechanism procedures did not adequately describe the requirements for the identifying and evaluating threats. 10. The operator did not use reasonable and appropriate subdivision of threats. 11. The mechanism of the procedure did not include the review of the potential threats. 12. The operator did not use all reasonable avoidable records. Depending on the circumstance, some examples listed in the section may be inadequate for plans of procedure but not probable violation. The enforcement tool to address these issues would be notice of amendment, notice of probable violation, or warning letter. Section 3 of the enforcement procedures provided with the guidance for selecting appropriate enforcement action. Examples of evidence are copies of applicable pages for the operator's integration management program, which demonstrates inadequate mechanism and procedural. 2. Reasonable available external information, e.g. advisory bulletins identifying the threat applicable to the operation system that was not considered developing the distribution integrity management program. 3. Documented photographic evidence that demonstrated the violation. 4. Documented oral written statements for the operational personnel, or special notations not so far visible. Alright, Distribution Integrity Management Part 1 and 2 of December 7th, 2015, 119, 1015, B3, 192, 1015. One must a master meter small liquid petroleum gas operator due to implement the subpart existing code. The elements written in integrity management program must address the minimum following elements. 3. Rank risk. The operator must evaluate the risk of its pipeline, estimate the relative importance of each identified threat. The origin code of 192.113.74 Federal Register and 63906 December 4th, 2009. Last amended interpretation summaries and advisory bulletin alert notice summaries are not so far as visible. Other reference material and sources address the Distribution Integrity Management Program Final Rule Preamble to the Federal Register, Volume 74, Note Number 232, Friday, December 4, 2009. Rules and Regulations, Comment Topic 22, Risk Command Assessment, page 63920. Distribution Integrity Management frequently asked questions. C4, C1. What are their key things that the operator should be focusing on developing an effective risk assessment methodology? C4, C2, from which the data the operator is required to collect the data for their plan. C4, C3, how nearly identified threats of the system integrity expected to be handled in an operator's distribution integrity management program plan. C4, C5, do the multiple threats that need to be considered for each of the facility grouping. Do all the threats need to be in one relative risk ranking? C4, C6, what expected multiple state operator in regard to the risk ranking? C4, C7, we plan to perform in the risk ranking by the state regardless of the outcome of the risk ranking. It will not increase the historical level expenditures of each system. 8, however, the system would provide wide risk ranking will be used to determine whether the expenditure beyond the historical levels were allocated does it meet the intent of the state and by the state risk ranking. C4B9, we are experiencing problems in ranking potential threats, and some of the low frequency have not occurred in our systems to the date. We are considered with the mixing apples and oranges and assigning of the frequency of the probability to a threat that had not been occurred, ranking along with it, and the events that have due frequency for how should we account for the low or no frequency threats and evaluation ranking risk? Gas Pipeline Technology Committee Guide Material Appendix G 192.8 Section 5 Evaluating and Ranking Risk. The Guidance Information Master Meter Small Liquid Petroleum Gas operated treated differently in the Distribution Integrity Management Program Large and Operative Storm Section 192-1001 Integrity Management Program. The Integration Management Program were a means of written explanation mechanism procedure. Operator will use the implemented integrity management program to ensure the compliance with the subpart, the master meter, and the small liquid petroleum gas operators. Integrate management program must include the appropriate set of the mechanism procedures developed and implemented to each of the program element. The applicability of the word or mechanism for the operator is important, as the synonym of the mechanism and process the operator may employ. Written an explanation of the process employed with the mechanism developed and implemented the required elements less specific for the written procedure. The integrated management program for the pipeline should be reflected the relatively simplicity of these types of pipelines. The distribution integrity management program could not be could be concise but still insufficient for the operator personnel understanding and implementing of the program consistent with the base. 2. The operator may use the written explanation of the process employed to develop the implemented required element less specific than the written procedure. Once the threat has been identified, the operator must develop a method of assess, prioritize associated risk in order to address those greater than the concerning first. In performing the risk analysis, it is important to note the risk of the likelihood of the event of occurring at the time, the consequence of the event. An event that is highly likely, also highly publicly safety consequence, constitutes an event of the greatest concern. Unlikely event having minimal consequences may not justify extraordinary precautions, and unlikely event that could have the very high consequences may justify additional precaution distribution incidents as defined in Title 49 CFR 191 Transportation of Natural and Other Gas Pipelines. Annual reports, incident reports, safety-related condition reports, and contained with the Pipeline Hazard Safety Administration incident database, often events that are lowly likely but highly consequential. 4. The operator must identify both likelihood of the frequency of the consequence and the potential impact of the failures due to each of the subcategory threat in each system, determining the relative risk. When the risk reaches a threshold set, the operator measures to reduce the risk may be needed to address the threat. 5. The inadequate for the operator to conclude that the pipeline is not subject to any of the particular threats based on solely for the fact that it's not experienced as a pipeline failure that has been attributed to the threat, and they also must be considered a potential threat. Example, the likelihood factor to be considered the leaks per number of services based on the size of the operator, B, the amount of construction activity in the area, and C, the number of hits per unit locate tickets. 7. Example, the consequent factors to be considered: A, operating procedure, B, population density, downtown versus rural, C, impact, loss of supply, D, the number of the customers affected, E, the proximity, structure, and critical facilities, schooling, and hospitals, F, the proximity of the known of the group of people limited in mobility, usually institutionalized. 8. The operator may employ the various means of the achieving validation. Elements of the validation may include the team review of the results, subject matter expertise reviews. And 9. The operator must have the mechanism, procedure, validation, results of the risk analysis process. The result generated by the module should have agreed with the consensus of the validation group. If an analysis results do not identify knowing the risk of the fish factors evaluation model method must be questioned and analyzed if necessary and revised. Examples of probable violation and inadequate procedures: the operator does not have mechanism procedure for the coverage of the task being performed. The operator fails to follow the written mechanism procedure. The operator did not perform risk evaluation to estimate the relative importance of the identified threat. A comprehensive risk analysis process was not adequately developed. 5. All portions of the pipeline were not included in the risk analysis. 6. The process did not adequately consider the unique risk factors when using the standard risk manual. 7. The risk analysis process was not adequately documented. The risk analysis. 8. The risk analysis process did not adequately consider all identified risks. 9. The operator's specific legal failure history, other operational experience were not adequately considered in the risk analysis. 10. The poor quality data was used in the risk analysis. 11. The basic risk module scores on the adequate documentation. 12. The operator did not validate the results of the risk evaluation. 13. The operator history is not consistent with the output of the risk evaluation module. Information provided with the validation team does not concur with the results. The operation has no documentation validation in the ranking results. 16. The mechanism procedure does not include the sufficient detail of the clarity of allowing anyone required to use to perform the task. Depending on the circumstances, some of the examples listed in this section may be inadequate plans or procedures but are not probable violations. Thus, an enforcement tool address these items of the notice of amendment, notice with the probable violation, or warning letter. Section 3. The enforcement procedure providing guidance on selecting the appropriate enforcement action. Examples of evidence: a copy applicable pages of the operative distribution integrity management program demonstrating inadequate procedures, documented oral written statements for the operational personnel, printing out the operator's risk ranking results, proper portions of the documentation of the commercial products demonstrating it should have not been used in the manner of the operator used it, documented photographic evidence demonstrating the violation, documented oral written statements from the operational personnel. Other special notations are not so visible. Alright, Continuing on, Enforcement Guidance Distribution Integrity Management Plan 192, December 7th, 2015, 192, 1015, B4, 192, 1015. What must a master meter live small liquid petroleum gas operator do to implement the subpart existing code language elements integrity management plan must be addressed in the minimum following elements. The existing code language identifying and implementing measures to mitigate the risk. The operator must determine and implement the measures designed to reduce the risk of failure of its pipeline. Origination code 192.113.74 F Federal Registration 63906 December 4, 2009. Last amendment interpretation summaries and advisory bias alert notice summaries not available. Others references and material sources address distribution integrity management from a final rule preamble to Federal Registry Volume 74 number 232 Federal Friday December 4 2009 some rules and regulations. Comment topic 14 leaking monitoring page 6391 7. Comment topic 16 and integration management program evaluation improvement 6390 18 and comment topic 23 performance measures 6392 2. Distribution integrity management frequently asked questions. C4D1 must operate and implement additional accelerated actions reduce the risk from the pipeline. The frequently asked question C4D2: how will small operators with limited staff be able to implement the requirements of the risk analysis selection and the risk control measures? C4D3: if an operator already had a legal leak management program, does the operator have to implement a new program in the response to the regulations? C4D4: why not simply require the operator of the gas distribution pipelines to replace the old pipe? C4D5: what kind of issues should the operator focus on addressing threat of the excavation damage as part of the distribution integrity management program? C4D6: in order to eliminate the need for the leak management program, how quickly would the operator need to repair all leaks? C4D7: can an installation excessive flow the values method to mitigate the risk? C4D8: what the criteria should the operator use to identify when the measuring and reducing the risk needed? C4D9: do all actions operated to take the reduce the risk not to be included with the distribution integrity management program? C4D10: we have heard the operators will require the implemented specific measures to reduce the risk. Can you describe the required action? C4D11: the frequently asked question was how can an operator demonstrate their leak management program is effective? Gas Pipeline Technology Committee, the GPTC, Guide Material Appendix G192.8, Section 8, identifying and implementing measures to address the risk. General information: master meter and small liquid petroleum gas operators are treated differently in the distribution management program. The large operators form the 192-1001 Integrity Management Program, Integration Management Program. Written explanation of the mechanism procedure for the operator will use to implement integrity of the management program and to ensure the compliance with the subpart. For the master meters and the small liquid petroleum gas operators, integrity management program must include the appropriate set of mechanisms or procedures to develop and implement each of the program element. Applicability of the word mechanism for these operators is important, but the synonym of the mechanism is process. The operator may employ the written explanation of the process employed mechanism to develop and implement a required element in less specific written procedure. The integrated management program for the pipeline should reflect the relatively simplicity of these type of pipelines. The distribution integrity management program should be concise but still must sufficient for the operator personnel to understand implementation program with the other consistent basis. Alright, 2. The operator may use a written explanation of the process employed to develop and implement a required element and list specifically with written procedure. 3. The design, operation, distribution system so diverse that no single risk control method is inappropriate. In all cases, risk can be reduced in implementing risk control practices that increase the likelihood of event occurring, mitigated with the consequences of the event. Considering the gas distribution system, it is essential to remember that the consequences of the failure distribution system make the and protracted period of time developed, and during this period, certain techniques can be used to detect the failure. Actions can be taken to address the failure before it produces an incident. 5. The process of identifying additional measures of management, but identifying the threats each pipeline segment in the risk analysis. Clearly, facilities group of the facilities represent the highest risk and most important candidates for the measure of the reducing the risk. The significant difference requirements of the M&M and the small limited master meters and the small liquid petroleum gas operators. Various operators under the section 192-105, the 1105. 192-1005 requirements of the code section does not require the measure to include the effective leak of the management program. 6. The operator must implement a scheduled measures to address the prominently risk identified with the risk evaluation August 2nd, 2011. The distribution integrity management was to have been developed and implemented by this date. Some of the measures may be implemented immediately, otherwise the pipe replacement may require the budget approval allocation resource. The operators should have been considered. This is the scheduled major of the measures that appropriate within their distribution integrity management program. Other operators are expected to properly identify the need of the measure for measures of event and the new risk identified. The mechanism of the procedure must detail the basis of decision, be it documented as part of the operator's integrity management program. Decision include which measures reduce the risk of the implemented schedule, implementation of the measures reduce the risk, performance metrics, and to measure reduce the risk. The 8. The operator must be able to produce the records demonstrating the risk of the measure has been implemented or is scheduled to be implemented. Scheduled measures should be justified measures based on the complexity of the implementation, consideration, budget constraints, procurement needed for the additional resources, etc. 9. For the measures, general information for the measures to reduce the risk schedule for the future implementation. Operators should have the records demonstrating actions occurring with the implementation measures according to the prescribed schedule, budget schedule, and preliminary actions completed. For example, the probable violation of inadequate procedure. The operator does not have mechanism procedure for the cover the task to be informed. The operator fails to follow with mechanism procedure. No mechanism procedure in place of identifying additional measures to prevent the pipeline failure to mitigate the consequences of the pipeline failure. The mechanism procedure does not identify the need of the measures to reduce the risk. The mechanism and procedure does not require the scheduled implementation of the measure for the reduce the risk. The mechanism and procedure identify the additional information is not based on identifying threats or each of the pipeline segment of the risk analysis. The mechanism, procedure for evaluation, additional preventive mitigative measures does not adequately describe the method used to assure the appropriate selection of the risk mitigative measure intended to reduce the risk of specific threat. And 8. The risk mitigative measure does not specifically address and identify the risk factors. The distribution integrity management program does not provide a schedule, implementation, or mitigative measures. The impact of the preventive mitigative actions on the risk was not adequately evaluated. Measures to reduce the risk have been performed according to the operator's guidance and procedure. Operators have not identified measures to reduce the risk when required by their risk evaluation. Operators has not scheduled to obtain the resources to perform measures to reduce the risk. Depending on the circumstances, some examples listed in this section may be inadequate. The plans of the procedure, non-probable violations that enforcement tools address these issues would be not noticeable amendment notice that not a notice of the probable violation warning letter. Section 3 of the enforcement procedure provided with the guidance for selecting the appropriate enforcement action. Examples of evidence: copy of the applicable pages of the operator's distribution integrity management program will demonstrate an inadequate procedure. Copy of the risk evaluation demonstrated with the measure to reduce the risk where they needed to be but scheduled documented photograph evidence and demonstrated the violation documented oral written statement for the operator personnel. Other special notations not so far advisable. Distribution Integrity Management, Part 192, Chapter, revision date from December 7, 2015, Section 192, 115B5. Section Title 119.115. What is the master meter and small liquid petroleum gas operator to implement to this part? Existing code language. Elements of the written integrity management plan must be addressed at a minimum of the following elements: measure performance monitoring results, evaluating effectiveness. The operator must monitor and performance measures the number of leaks eliminated, repaired on the pipeline, and their cause of the origination code of 119.113.74 were registered 63906, December 4, 2009, last amendment, and interpretation summaries and advisory built-in alert notices have been not noticed. Other referencing and material sources of distribution integrity management frequently asked questions. C4E1. What is the pipeline hazardous material safety administration selected for the performance measures that has and for periodic reporting? The C4E2. Does every measure to address the risk requiring for the performance measures? See Gas Pipeline Technology Committee Guide, Material Appendix G, 192.8 and Section 7. Most of the performance monitoring the results of that evaluating effectiveness, guidance information. Master, medium, small liquid petroleum gas are treated differently in the distribution integrity management rule. From larger operators. From 192-1001 integrity management plan, or the IM plan, means written explanation of mechanism procedure for the operator. We're using implemented integrity management to ensure the compliance with the subpart for the master meter with the small liquid petroleum gas as operatives. Integrity management program must include the appropriate set of the mechanism procedures developed and implementing each of the program element. The applicable word and mechanism for these operators are important. Synonym for the mechanism and process. The operator may employ the written explanation of the process employed. The mechanism developed and implemented the required elements and less specific with the written procedure. The integrated management program for these pipelines should reflect the relatively simplicity of these type of pipelines. The distribution integrity management program should be concise but still with sufficient operator personnel understanding the implementing program on a consistent basis. 2. The operator may use a written explanation of the process employed, develop, and implement the required element that is less specific with the written procedure. The mechanism procedure used by the operator must describe how they collect the data for the performance measure, number of leaks eliminated, repaired on the pipelines, and their causes. The operator must identify how frequently they use the monitor. The measure. The operator must have the documentation demonstrated with the monitoring performance measured, number of leaks eliminated, repaired on the line pipeline for its cause. Example: the probable violation, inadequate procedures, distribution integrity management does not contain the mechanism procedure for how they operate that monitors the performance measured, number of leaks eliminated, repaired on the pipeline, and their causes. Operator does not collecting data established to the pipeline measurement or to the monitoring performance measures, number of leaks eliminated or repaired on the pipeline and cause of the operator does not monitor the performance measure, the number of leaks eliminated, repaired on this pipeline for their causes. Depending on the circumstance, some examples listed in this section must be inadequate procedures, not probable violation. The enforcement to address the issue would be notice of the amendment and notice for the probable violation and warning letter. Section 3 in the enforcement procedure provided with the guidance on the selecting an appropriate enforcement action. Samples of evidence, copies of the applicable page for the operative distribution integrity management demonstrate the inadequate procedures documented in the oral written statements for the operative personnel substantially. The data was not collected or monitored. Documented photographic evidence demonstrating the violation. Other special notations not so far advisable. Distribution Integrity Management Part 192, December 7th, 2015, 119, 1015, B6, 190, Section Code, Section Title 119, 1015. What must a master or small liquid petroleum gas operator do to implement in the subpart? The existing code as B elements written integrity management program plan address the minimum of the following elements. B6, the periodic evaluation improvement. The operator must determine the appropriate period of conducting the integration management program evaluation based on the complexity of its pipeline, changing the factors affecting the risk of the failure. Operator must reevaluate the entire program for at least every 5 years. The operator must consider the results performance monitoring these evaluations. 192, 113, 74. FR 63906, December 4th, 2009. Last amendment interpretation summaries and advisory bulletin alert notice and summaries. Other reference of material sources addressed in the Distribution Integrity Management Final Rule Preamble to the Federal Register, Volume 74, number 232, Friday, December 4th, 2009. Rules and regulations. Comment topic: the Integrated Management Program Evaluation and Improvement. Page 63917. Distribution Integrity Management. Frequently asked questions. C4 F1. How often does the operator need to evaluate the program? C4 F2, what constitutes the period evaluation. Gas Pipeline Technology Committee, GPTC Guide Material Appendix G 198, 192, 8, and the Section 8 Periodic Evaluation Improvement. Guidance information: master meter small liquid petroleum gas is treated differently in the distribution management program. Larger operators from 192 1001 integrated management plan IM plan means the written explanation mechanism. Procedure operator will use the implemented integrated management program and to ensure the compliance with the subpart. The master meter and the small liquid petroleum gas operators integrity management program must include the appropriate set of the mechanism procedures developed and implemented each of the program element. The applicability of the word mechanism for the operator is important as the synonym of the mechanism in the process. The operator may employ a written explanation of the process employed, but the mechanism developed and implemented required element is less specific with written procedure for the integrated management program for the pipeline should reflect the relatively simplicity of the types of pipeline. The distribution integrity management program could be concise but still most sufficient for the operator the personnel to understand and implement the program on a consistent basis. 2. The operator may use the written explanation of the process employed, developed, and implemented required element the less specific with written procedure. 3. The master meter and small liquid petroleum gas operator generally not complies with a non-sufficient change of the condition of the system. Distribution integrity management only needs to evaluate an improvement for every 5 years when the change occurs, but the factor affecting the risk failure program evaluation should be conducted more frequently basis. The evaluation of the problem effectiveness should be included with the following items to determine the modification of the program need to be risk prioritization, risk control practice, failure analysis, results, performance measures. 5. The method of evaluation could range from the formal audit of the program to be a simple review of the above items and subject matter experts based on the needs of this program. 6. Corrective action to improve the integrity management program must be documented and monitored. For effectiveness, the review must examine the effectiveness and measures to reduce the risk of performance measures for recommendation improvement when necessary. Generic statements about implementing improvements now are not applicable. Examples of probable violations and adequate procedures. The distribution integrity management does not state the frequency of the program evaluation procedures did not include the evaluation performance measures and their effectiveness, determining if they still appropriate and if they need to be adjusted. Evaluation. The operator does not have a mechanism or procedure that covers the task of being performed through the evaluation. Evaluation 2. The operator fails to have written mechanism procedures. 3. The procedure performance goals will not include, but the procedure of the operator. The distribution management program evaluation process does not specifically address the means or the methods of the operator implemented into the track of the distribution integrated management program performance. The procedure does not have specific frequencies or time frames at which the operator must track the distribution integrity management program. 5. An operator of the distribution integrity management evaluation procedures does not assess whether the distribution integrity management program is effective in reducing the risk, and an operator of the distribution integrity management program evaluation procedures does not provide the operator information implementing improvements in distribution integrity management effectiveness based on findings from their evaluation, and for the operator's process based on the sound and the repeatable principle of the non-sufficient documented so an inspector can make a reasonable determination of accuracy, thoroughness of the process. The improvement. An operator did not change the distribution integrity management program as required to address the information obtained thoroughly annual reviews program evaluations whenever any of the changes occur materially alter with the elements of the distribution integrity management program. 7.3. An operator did not actually make the change of the distribution integrity management did not implement the change of the distribution integrity management when where the program evaluation identified that the changes were required. 3. An operator did not thoroughly document the change including the purpose of consent and data completed. The process operator described the procedure and not sufficiently documented it so an inspector can make a reasonable determination as to the accuracy throughout the process. Mechanism procedures do not include in sufficient detail clarity to allow anyone required to use them in the performance of the task. Implementation of the distribution integrity management program evaluation was adequately performed and or results were not adequate in documentation. Adequate actions were identified to improve the distribution integrity management based on review of the evaluation. 3. The actions identified with the distribution integrity management program evaluation were not adequately implemented. 4. The response of the performance measures indicating the poor performance and inadequate. Depending on the circumstance, some of the example listed in the section may be inadequate for the plans, procedures, and non-probable violations. These enforcement tools address are issued with written notice of amendment and notice of probable violation warning letter. Section 3 of the enforcement procedure provide with the guidance in selecting the appropriate enforcement action. Example of evidence. Copy the applicable distribution integrity management page of the supporting the violation discussed above the separately in combination. Copy these of the operating procedure showing that it does not meet the specified requirements. Documented photographic evidence demonstrating the violation. Documented oral written statement from the other operator personnel. Other special notifications not so advisable. Alright, Distribution Integrity Management, Part 192, chapter December 7th, 2015, 192, 1015, C, 192, 1015, section titled, What Must a Master and the Small Liquid Petroleum Gas Operator Do to Implement the subpart? Existing code. The records of the operator must maintain the period of the latest 10 years for the following records. The written integrated management program in accordance with the section, including superseded integrated management program documented support, threat identification documented showing the location material of all the piping appurtenances that are installed with the effective date of the operator integrated management program to the extent location material of all the pipes and appurtenances were existing the effective data date of the operator's program. Original code 192 11374 FR 63906 November 4th 2009 last amendment is interpretation summaries advisory bulletin alert notice and summaries set aside office other reference material sources address the distribution integrity management program final rule preamble Federal Register volume 7492 number 232 for 2 Faraday, December 4th, 2009, Rules and Regulation, Comment Topic 11, Required Documentation, page 30, 39 and 15. Alright, your distribution integrity management frequently asked questions. C4G1, what are the operators starting, collecting, and maintaining the records data needed for the performance measures? C4G3, can a PM pipeline hazardous material safety administration further define the number of excavation tickets on the new form? C4G4, when the municipal operators joint utility operators should the number of the excavation tickets include all excavation tickets adjusted and sent for the gas department? C4G5, all multiple tickets with a single job continue mounted in single excavation ticket. C4G6, what are the excavation data image on excavation not on the ticket? C4G7, we have a lot of steel risers which can be tightened to eliminate leaks. We have not reported these on the Form 67100 in Part C, total leaks, and has the leaks eliminated repaired during the year in this past. The leaks are considered the report leaks per the Distribution Integrity Management Program. Should the threats be considered in the Distribution Integrity Management Program? C61, what records does the operator need to maintain to demonstrate compliance to Subpart B, P? C62, must I retain all the records concerning the developing the Distribution Integrity Management Program 119-1011? C63, I am required to submit the Distribution Integrity Management Program, federal, state, and regulator general information. Operators are required to maintain records to demonstrate the compliance with the Distribution Integrity Management for the minimum of 10 years, including the superseded copy of the Distribution Integrity Management Program. Early revision of the program must include the documented files, archived information. Documentation must include as an effective data of any of the all revision numerous records and are generated as a result in Distribution Integrity Management Programs to the extent that these records demonstrate compliance with the rule requirements, that they are maintained by the operator such that they are readily retrievable, protected with damage, secured, and sufficiently to prevent unauthorized use. 4. For other records such as worksheet, memorandum note of the documentation should be retrievable, center location extent practicable, unopposed, and being retained exclusively individual without record of the storage responsibility, since many of the records may be retained for the life of the pipeline. Suggests that the records should be kept in some formalized structure of record keeping system. As opposed to the individual working file, the procedure should include the documented location with the operator's facility. As an alternative to each of the guideline procedures, specifically record keeping requirements, a single documented specifies that all record keeping requirements would be considered sufficient programmatic control. Records B, the records retained should be conditionally legible, readable, readily retrievable, probable, secured, and properly completed. See, any procedure guidance for the threat identification risk assessment must be retained as well as the result of the process. ED, the periodic update of the risk assessment documentation would also be expected in the program files, including supporting records such as meeting minutes and subject matter expert reviews when the conclusion are drawn. E, the regulation does not require the documented support any of the decisions, analysis process developed, used in implementing evaluation. Each element in the integrity management program must be maintained, but they are useful. This set of documentation includes but the developing, using the support, identification, calculation, amendment, modification, justification, deviation, determination made, any action taken in the implementation and evaluation of the program elements. 5. The operator needs the provision in the writing of the distribution integrity management for the capturing and retaining of the data about the new pipeline installation data from the new pipelines must be included with the characteristics to identify the threat and evaluate the risk of the operator's distribution integrity management program. The data must include at the minimum the location where the new pipeline is installed with the material in which the constructor but the operator control could document on this map or the other drawings in the system. 6. The matter is more than just steel and plastic. It should include the specification grade of steel, type of the plastic, manufacturing, coating, etc. in accordance with the definition of the Pipeline Statute 1923. This includes the value and other prudencies of the gas flows. Examples of probable violation, inadequate procedure. The operator did not have the mechanism procedure specifying the copy superseding integrity management program will be maintained for at least 10 years. The operator does not have the documentation to support the threat identification. The operator did not keep the required records of the documentation for 10 years. The operator does not have the records of other documentation to support any other above the requirements. The operator has recorded other documentation to support the compliance with the above requirements. The operator does not have the documentation but to demonstrate the material location facility to extent known of the prior to the installed after the effective date of the integration management program. Procedures do not include the process required of the necessary data of new pipelines. Depending on the circumstances, some of the examples listed in this section must be inadequate and procedures not probable violations. Thus, the enforcement tool to address the issue would be notice of amendment, notice of probable violation, warning letter, Section 3 enforcement guidelines provide with the guidance in selecting the appropriate enforcement action. Examples of evidence: copy the operator mechanism procedure showing that it does not meet the specified requirements. Copy the applicable page of the operator distribution integrity management program showing the required data collection utilization of the data is not in the distribution integrity management program. Documented photographic evidence demonstrating the violation and documented oral written statement from the operator personnel. Other special notifications not foreseen. And that concludes our 192 Gas Distribution Pipeline Integrity Management Enforcement Guidance for Title 49 CFR Part 192 Subpart B Gas Distribution Pipeline Integrity Management Program Enforcement. Thanks for listening. I'll post this on YouTube.